Welcome to Your Next Best Step with Breck Cochran, the locker room for purpose-driven leaders. This is where we slow down, reflect, and take our next best steps through real stories, practical strategies, and rooted leadership wisdom. Remember, the best leaders need a coach in their corner.
Well, hey, welcome to your Next Best Step podcast, the Leaders Locker Room today, and have a special guest, a friend, and we'll talk about all of that in our conversation today. But this is my good buddy Pete Hixson. So, Pete, welcome to the locker room today, brother.
Thank you. So good to be with you.
Yeah, man. So for listeners who don't know, I'm the oldest of three brothers, and I always get a kick when we're all three together and somebody says, "Who's the oldest?" And I'm like, "Dude, I already love you. You don't have to say one more thing." And it drives John and Thad crazy.
Oh, I know it does. I love to watch them more than watch you, actually. You know.
Like, because there's 7 years difference between John and 9 years between Thad. And so it's always a win for me.
That'll get Thad, when Thad gets upset, he gets that little red face a little bit. He's just getting all, he's getting worked up.
Yeah.
I really like it more with John though, because John, he's got that, he's got a little bit of that strut, and that puts a little wrench in his strut,
It does.
I hope he sees this.
Yeah, well, and so we've had Pete has been a part basically of our family for years. Went to school with Thad originally, and then he and his wife Holly. And did you have the kids at that point when you were at Wake Forest?
We were married literally like a couple weeks when we met John and Tita.
Okay, and so. They all met at Wake Forest, going to seminary down there, and so we've been a part of it, and there's kind of a kind of a fourth brotherhood that we have, and Pete, I think you were the first adopted brother, though probation is always just a slow, quick way.
I was listening very carefully in your introduction, and you went to friend and you didn't go to brother, so it caused a real insecurity already kicking in. Like, I am living on the edge of I am in the family to never you're never welcome to be around. So no, I'm kidding. But it is always like I have actually claimed myself as being engrafted into the Cockrell brother, because I have two sisters, love them dearly, but had no brothers, and met the Cockrell clan through the process you just said. And I just invited myself in, and that self-invite sometimes is sustainable, and at other times I don't make the cut. I know it.
Well, when you cross over that line, as we've had a few other brothers, like once you're in, if you want, as Thad says, if you want the bull, you got to take the horns that come with it, right? So
yeah. And once you're in, but let's be honest, like there's also a line. And so you can move to the front of the line, or you can do something or not do something, and you're in the back of the line, and you know it. You know it. You just feel it. Yeah, you're in the cockpit. I tell people like this, or Holly and I laugh. You know the movie Four Christmases?
Yes.
And Vince Vaughn goes to see his other brothers. Like, I am Vince Vaughn in this scenario, and John loves to harass me verbally, and watch me suffer through pain. There's a part of you and Breck that it's this. I feel like I am in a wrestling match at times, and I'm the younger brother that everybody loves to pick on. So, it's a great moment.
Well, we love you, man. And
I wouldn't have it any other way.
yeah. So why don't you tell listeners a little bit? Man, um, you are a fellow coach. We've kind of had a similar kind of path to where we are today,
Yep.
even though you're a bit younger. Uh, we've kind of been on a similar trajectory. But just share a little bit with your listeners about family, about where you're at, what you're doing today.
I will. Yeah. And if I can just insert this quickly, but I mean it. You talk about the joke of a bit younger. I there's a lot of things I appreciate about you, Breck. You are literally one of the youngest at heart, and you still look freaking amazing for, you know,
Being
being at
old,
whatever age that is. I don't even know. I don't care, but I feel like you are. I mean this in the most incredibly manly way, but like you have such a playful spirit, and you just don't find that. And you have joy in life. You know how to have fun, and people that get to be. I find myself being an old crank and acting like I'm like, did my dad just step into the room? And I don't mean that as an offense, Dad,
right?
but like. And I'm like, what is going on with me? It's
Yeah.
just easy to let that creep in. But I appreciate so many things about you. But your youthfulness and fun spirit, it takes you in the opposite direction, man.
Hmm.
You are so fun to be around, and
That's
you
cool. I
love to
appreciate
surround
that.
yourself with young people and young thoughts and always open. And it's just uncommon, and I appreciate it about
Hmm.
you. So,
Well, I appreciate that, Petey boy.
yeah.
So yeah, enough of that BS.
Yep. Enough,
So,
enough about you. I knew you wouldn't want to go into that. But yeah, my wife and I are in a empty nest season. We have two girls, Hope and Addie. Hope's our 24-year-old, Addie's our 21-year-old. They're
hmm,
both in college. We can get into more of that. Uh, yeah, Holly and I got married in 1997, so this August was 28 years. And we were married on August 2nd, and I think it literally was like the second or third week of August we met John and Tita.
hmm,
So um, we've been dear friends with them and knew Thad before that. So that's why I've engrafted myself as a
yes,
cockerel brother. But
sure.
and then you and Gloria and your kids and um man, I mean it's been a ride with our friendship, and I think we've been able to see each other go through um, some significant changes.
Hmm,
As you alluded to, we both are doing really the same thing and have a similar background. Like you, I was a pastor of local churches in different types of settings. I feel like all around the country. Lived in many states and drug my family around. But I did that for 20 plus years, 22 years maybe. It
yeah.
was all that I ever thought I would do professionally, so to
Hmm,
speak. And then in 2019, we stepped out of a pastor situation. And it was just a season where I really felt like I personally felt like God just said, do whatever you want, but guard your heart and protect your family. And I felt like the best way that I could do both of those things was just to remove myself from a situation that I didn't want to keep fighting.
hmm,
Not because I didn't have that fight. That was part of
yeah.
something that we may get into today. Um, and we moved back to Atlanta. Didn't know what I was going to do professionally. I was wide open to still pastoring. It wasn't I'm never going to do this again thing. And then you, John, Thad, our group of Lions were
Hmm,
on a fishing trip, and it was very soon after I had stepped out. It was in a really low point and didn't know what to do next. And one of our mutual friends, Don, said, why don't you come help me do some things until you figure out what you want to do? And there wasn't even coaches at that time.
right.
So I became a StoryBrand certified facilitator, private workshop facilitator. That that was really the main product StoryBrand was doing. And then they had marketing guides, and then the coaching certification came along. I got certified in that. And simultaneously, I was speaking in churches. I was trying to just build a bridge to make income and put food on the
Sure.
table. We had
Right.
moved, and then the pandemic hit. I mean, there was so much going on.
Yeah.
And that was, 2019. So 6 years ago, uh, plus now that I moved into a new phase of life and had no idea what all would be on the other side. And then one very special thing that we didn't see coming, but we always knew it was a part of our life. Our 24-year-old Hope uh, was born, went into respiratory distress, stopped breathing, caused a gap in her brain. It's the best way I know how to explain it. And at the age of 2 was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. So we have been a part of the special needs community for
Mhm.
her whole life, for 24 years. And I tell people, we've been raising her, but she's been raising us. She's changed all of us.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
so
she's affectionately known as Hopi, and she
yeah,
has the world's greatest smile.
she
And,
does.
it takes 2 seconds to fall in love with Hopi
Oh
and
yeah.
for her to fall in love with you. And so that's such a special part of, your family. Um, and so, yeah, it's been a journey. I think, our conversation today, I think it's one of those things. We've been on a couple of podcasts and different things together talking
Mhm.
about this transition, kind of the role, what it felt like to as pastors at one
Mhm.
point, stepping out of that and what that looks like, feels like, but I think for today's conversation, with all of that kind of setting us up. I love the hat you got on, never not on mission. And you just were on a call, a coaching call earlier today.
Yeah.
I've had several coaching calls this week. And it's we're and the thing I think we love about it is that we get to still be a part of people's lives in certain ways, more intimately than we ever had the
Mm.
chance to be
Mm.
as pastors, where people invite us in and to their lives and their leadership and their businesses, and I find it amazing. But I love that hat. I love kind of what it says. What's kind of the heart behind that? Because I know it's a little bit of a framework that you help leaders, and
Mhm.
and this is your next best step podcast, and it's really for leaders to help them think about things, to pay attention to things that maybe they haven't paid attention to help them in areas maybe where they've been stuck or maybe unsure, uncertain. And so what do you say about that hat, about the mission of
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. I am a mission driven person, and I think a lot of us would say that. I mean, I don't know any leader out there who isn't, right? Um, and so mission has been something, and it's interesting. If you've read, as I know you are very involved with the seven primal questions, Mike Foster and this
Yeah.
whole concept, and I had to work through those. Mine is do I have purpose, which is
Mm,
interesting because it's the whole like where that gap got created.
yeah.
I'm not actually sure, but I could pull some pieces together, and I've always had this somewhat underlying gap of I want to make sure my life counts. And we can use that in a negative way, or we can leverage it in a positive way, and it becomes our superpower. And that's
Yeah.
just been mine. Like I have my own insecurities in that, which is what drives me to want to make sure that I always have it. And I really am passionate about it. And here's why. Um, I'll pull some personal pieces into it and then some individuals I've sat with and listened to and then just some observations. And it's really this. Um, when we are doing something we thought we always would do or a life season, and for me, it was pastoring.
Hmm.
And then that comes to an end somewhat abruptly, or at least that scenario that I shared earlier for me, I felt a real vacancy and I felt a real disappointment in myself and I felt a real, I don't understand what's going on. Um, and we have to be careful with those because and there's a healthy process of learning and letting it sit, but there's an there's a real danger with living a moment of our life with having no mission whatsoever.
Mm.
Um, and I can come back to that. I remember sitting with a young professional athlete across the table from me at a breakfast, and he said, I retired at the age of, I don't remember, like early 30s or something, which
Right.
is typical, other than, Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and people like
Right.
that. But, which I'm
Shout
great with.
out Steelers fan.
Let's go, Pittsburgh. I'm
I
a
find it interesting that the hat is the same
bro.
color,
That
just
is
coincidence.
not a coincidence at all. If you go to petespeaks.org, you will see the
It's
black and
all,
yellow
yes,
represented everywhere on purpose.
it's the
Anyway,
standard.
let's go. The standard is standard. I'm still a Mike T fan. All right. Um, sitting across from this young professional athlete saying, I'm done with my career at the age of 30 something. What am I going to do now? I never thought one moment of my life other than every day since I was young, training. And I've sat with military people. I've watched people go into retirement. And that's where the concept has come from. And then my personal situation was this gap and discouragement and disappointment and somewhat disillusionment of like, what happened? What went wrong?
Mm.
And what I didn't know, and this is where I was headed with sharing about Hopi, and our scenario with this special needs community was that God had a real mission for us, but I didn't know it. And I had to go through some of those discouragements and disappointments to get it. But we started a nonprofit organization for young adults like Hope to live as independently as possible. And it's called Beyond Communities, and we're helping them live beyond what even the world thinks that is possible for
Mm.
them. She's now in her fifth year of a college program post high school. And every year, like she just keeps pushing the ceiling of
Yeah.
independence. Um, and I'll wire this back down to never not on mission. You don't have to go start a nonprofit. You don't have to go change the world. Um, but we always need to have mission. And even when we think we don't have it, we can be working on our work, we can be working on our priority relationships, and then we can obviously be working on our own personal growth. Like, call that mission.
Hmm.
Don't let anything idle uh, don't let idle be your definition and your identity because we know what happens after that. And so it comes from just my own personal situation, my own observations, and just relationships with people. I have a passion to help people live on mission, find mission, short term, long term. If you want to create something, obviously that's what we get to do as coaches. That's part of like organizational structure. I've got a young 30, something guy who right now I just got off the phone with him this week and I'm putting a proposal together for him for some kind of life, but brand mission work and message work. He wants to use the gifts that he has and utilize that, and live a life of more mission.
Yeah.
By the way, what your mission is doesn't have to be your occupation. Sometimes it is, and sometimes
Yeah.
it can be. But the fact that if you're doing a job you don't necessarily love, it cannot and should not ever exclude you from
Yes.
still having a passion and a mission. You've
Yeah.
got to be passionate about something that
Yeah.
gets you up in the morning and helps you, you know, have something you're reaching towards. So that's
Yeah.
just the heartbeat behind Never Not on Mission.
Well, I love that, and it's so true. I talk a lot about John Townsend, and he his whole framework, Henry Cloud, is about being grounded. Like when the root works, the fruit works.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's so the thing I love about mission, and it's what I personally like as business leaders. we probably all have read the books and watched the Simon Sinek's "What's Your Why," which is hugely important. Like
Right.
the why plus mission, kind of those kind of things are similar. Like what gets us up, what drives us versus just winging it,
Hmm.
right? And I think a lot of times, though, as leaders, we could spend a lot of time about our business, our restaurant, our office branch, whatever that is, and we work really hard at crafting a why statement, like our
Hmm.
mission statement. But when I ask leaders, I said, "Okay, that's great. I want to know what's your why. What's your mission statement?"
Mm.
And so often, have never thought about, "Oh, you mean a personal one?" I said, "Yeah, because that is what everything comes out of. That our rootedness, our groundedness, where we stand on, we have to have our why, we have to have our what are our values, so that we're not operating out of circumstances. We're not
Right.
operating out of like scarcity or the our emotions, or that we are grounded, we're tethered back to something. And that's what I love about the idea of never not on mission. I think you're right. The primal question, the seven primal questions that Mike Foster, I went through that and got certified. And the thing I love about that is we have these seven questions that they're all important. Like, am I loved? Am I secure? Am
Yeah.
I wanted? Am I successful? Mine, it was I. There's seven of them, and because we're similar, I thought initially when I went through it, it was, do I have a purpose? But mine was, am I good enough?
Mm.
I dug down deeper and I'm
Mm.
like, am I good enough? And that's the little judge that sits on our shoulder
Mm.
every day, growing up and talking smack to us, right?
Hmm.
And you're like, and the thing about it is that when we, as Mike describes it, when we try to get that primal question answered with a yes,
Hmm.
and we get a no or a maybe, we
Mm.
go into scramble mode.
Yeah.
And when we can understand the other side of us, and when we are curious about ourselves, and like this happens when we're young, and we carry that into adolescence and then into young adulthood, and then we get married or we have relationships, we're business owners, like we're still in that scramble mode if we don't understand this question and understand that, hey, yes, I'm good enough.
Right.
Doesn't mean that I'm perfect or anything, but yeah, or I do have purpose. But what we don't want to live is in that scramble. And I think everybody has to have some level of purpose for
Right.
you not to live in the scramble,
Yeah. Yep.
because we get compared. We got, we're on social media or whatever that is, and we're comparing and like, oh my gosh, the scramble hits, and like, no, man, that's why we got to be rooted and ready, grounded with our why, with our what, with our how, with the mission that we have, so
Right.
that even if we're in a job that we almost hate, we
Mm.
can still live on purpose.
Right. Right. Well, and I think, life in the world of words and content, right? I'm just going to be honest with you. You and I know in the there's nothing new under the sun concept, right? And so it's all about repackaging. I mean, this is a similar heartbeat as, you know, purpose-driven life. And it's
Sure.
the whole, it's like it's just tapping into human behavior that everybody knows I need a direction, I need purpose, I need, right? And we get to see this organizationally or coaching wise with organizations of helping them create and design, or individuals, a set of mission and guiding principles, putting words to paper. Then, as I love to say, and we talk about, those words give clarity. And now that I have clarity, I have direction. And now that I have direction, what do I have? Oh, I feel more purposeful. And
Mm,
so organizationally, companies get that, and you have to align people around that. Individuals get that. I taught a mission and guiding principles workshop at John's church to a bunch of young couples, and we called it a family on mission workshop.
Yeah.
And so it's just something that I love and I'm passionate about. And the truth is, it's nothing new. It's nothing brilliant or
Yeah.
intelligent. It's just a matter of realizing, you know what? Everybody needs this. And because there are people out there, when the gap happens, right? When the discouragement happens, that's the real heartbeat for me is going, no, 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 no. Your life is not over. Maybe it's
Mhm.
just a season of I'm turning the clock and I turned 50 this past year. In a couple months I'll be 51, so I'll be technically in my 50s. Um, but like, you know, I've sat around the fire and talked to you, Breck, at some times. That's why I just love your tenacity in life of like, doesn't mean you haven't gone through discouragements. I've seen it, I've felt it, I've been there with you, you've been there with me. But what is going to pull us out of it? I know you and I share the same uh, worldview that apart from God, we can't do it, right? We need Him. It's His
Yeah.
Spirit in us and all. Well, what is practically and what does He call us to? Like
Hmm.
if we get, I just wrote this devotion 1 or 2 days ago. I'm been on the side kind of working on a devotion thing that for 4 years, I've been writing my own journal devotions and I'm going to put
Yeah.
it together in a devotional. Anyway, and I just said, don't get stuck. And the concept was we live in a world where we have so much opportunity to get like self-discovery, and it is wonderful and it's so good, and we can read models and go through the tests and take all this. The danger in that is we become so aware of ourselves and we know the value of self-awareness,
Hmm.
but that without thinking about it, we are thinking about ourselves all day long, and that's
Yeah.
never healthy. Then we get in our own head, and then that causes analyzing, over analyzing, and then we're stuck rather than living a simple childlike life and just going after it sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, and I think those moments, where we feel stuck, we feel discouraged, we feel disappointed, or something didn't go the way we wanted it to. It's the time to, and this was the concept. A couple years ago taught this to had a chance to share this with our Lions group, and I've shared this with at a men's conference. And the real practical tool that we start with when finding mission is something we all have, and it's our eyes, right? It's like opening our eyes to see something out there that maybe we didn't see before. It could be our ears. What that really is we've got to maybe stop, and this is hard for me, and this is what we're doing, we're talking, but like to shut the mouth, open the ears, open the eyes, be an observer, be a noticer, and be in tune with something, and then define a problem that we're passionate about
Mm.
and then go solve that problem. And most of
Yeah.
the times, the mission that we're involved in is going to come from personal pain that we've experienced. Um, and so it's not hard to to discover what that mission is. Um, Once we really do what you just said, you've got to dig below the surface and do the hard work. And then just set some words and some guidance around it and go after it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I think, man, Pete, we've talked about it. I know to me, it's frustrating. Sometimes I get so frustrated with myself on actually taking action,
Mm,
right? We think about it, we process it, and we want to get all the tools together and everything. And it really, when I look at it, I'm just delaying
yeah.
doing it.
Yeah, it's so true.
It's kind of like this
Yeah.
podcast. I've talked about doing this
Oh,
podcast for 8 years. The iterations of it, I had it, it was going to be called one thing, and I had it kind of mocked up, and I couldn't pull the trigger.
mm,
And this summer, I'm like, what is one of the things I need to do that can help grow my reach, my audience, like to be able to, and it was like the Lord's like, well, you could, what about the darn podcast,
Mhm.
and I've had different people say, hey, you ought to do it. And then I did this little 5-day challenge, David Shands, and he basically said, if you have a phone, you've got a podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stop making excuses. Don't edit it. Just do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right. So I did a date. I've got an assistant that helps me. I said, all right, we're gonna do this, and got a little bit of help, and man, we we launched it. I think we're just barely into this, but now I'm like, wow, how can I do that in other areas of my
Mm.
life and
Yeah.
actually just do it? How do you what would you say to help leaders to just get over that kind of the paralysis, just being paralyzed due to analysis or trying to get it perfect or whatever in their lives? How do you help us, take that step of action?
Yeah. I feel a bit hypocritical even answering that question because I feel like I should be the one asking the question. In many ways, because it's funny you mentioned the podcast. I still have not done one and still talk about it all the time. And so that's a trigger I need to pull and want to pull and do. And part of it goes into where I'll respond to your question. I think it is part we want to perfect it. And then part we live in a world where our eyes are so open to everybody else doing something. And I don't know if this is you, but it's me. I look at it and I'm like, why do I need to write a book? Because there's so many books that have been
Right.
written.
What
And
can I
I
add to the
mean,
world?
and
Right.
who am I compared to XYZ? And
Yeah.
oh my God, I'm just going to add to the noise out there if I throw another podcast on it's call that insecurity, call that. So there's something that's holding us back. And you know this phrase more than anyone, and we believe this to be true, but it's like until the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, we aren't going to
Mm,
change, right?
yeah.
And so whatever that pain hits, of I've got to generate more business, I've got to get my voice out there, I can't deal with this, whatever's within me any longer, or there might be something exterior. Um, Something will move us forward. Um, and and so I think that's concept. As far as what's the practical way to step out of it, I think it's surrounding ourselves with people who are going to pull us up. I don't
Mm,
know any other number one thing I would tell people to do. And you and Tom just talked about this, on your show when you interviewed him, and I'm in that same community of the Lions. And when you surround yourself with uh like I said, I don't know how else to say it, people that will pull you up.
yeah.
Um, and that also will let you be you,
Yeah.
and it's not like this, pissing contest either. It's like, man, I I'm inspired, I'm challenged, I'm encouraged, and I can't not. And then the other piece of that is, and we talk about this a lot, Thad talks about this in our group, like when you put yourself on the line,
Mm,
and you said, I'm going to go do this, you go, I got to do this.
yeah.
That's part of the commitment is, and I'm just such a big person on words. Like you got to get words out, like get it. I'm always talking to my clients about getting what's out of your head and out of your heart and getting it on paper, even in the areas of discouragement. It's like, I don't really know what's going on. I can't really, and sometimes we don't know, but man, when you get it out, I mean, even a very spiritual concept is this, if it is just throwing you around. It's almost like I'm not trying to be over spiritual, but it's kind of like, you know, Jesus would encounter someone who has a demonic spirit and he calls them out by name and gets them out, and that person is no longer in turmoil. We can be a part of literally that by just writing
Mm,
out the words, and then all of a sudden you say, "Oh, that's what it is. Oh, you don't have
yeah.
power over me anymore."
Yeah.
So we have to recognize who we're dealing with. And if it is a spirit of, at times, laziness, then we got to call that out and get out of it. If it's a spirit of insecurity, like whatever it is that's holding us back, we
Mm,
need to call it by name. And then if we're surrounding ourselves with people, we present that. And at that point, we've now committed. And let's be honest, the group of people that are listening and watching this, once we've put ourselves on the line, we're going to do it. We're going to go
yeah.
for it. We're going to stick with it. Accountability kicks in at that point.
Yeah. I think with that being said, I think it's a great setup because I'd love for you to talk a little bit. You mentioned beyond communities,
Mhm.
um, but and like you're simultaneous, you're coaching,
Mhm.
you're helping, but you also have a mission
Mhm.
that's driving you that's beyond just literally the coaching aspect. Um, and I love the fact that we were a part of that journey of like, okay, I got to do something uh, because it's not just about Hopi. It's
Right.
about so
Right.
many other families. Could you just share a little bit about that and the importance and why Beyond Communities is needed in, you know, in every city in America, in every
Yeah.
township and rural community, but you got to start somewhere and why
Yeah.
it's being started where it is today.
Thank you for that opportunity to share. It is um, a passion of mine, and I was going to subliminally share it anyway as I just present our anyway.
Yes.
Uh, um, it is a mission that has been planted in my heart, and that's my personal mission. Sometimes I hesitate using that as an example to start with because the concept of being on mission does not have to be, like I said, go start a nonprofit. For
Hmm.
ours, it did lead to that. And it started with watching our daughter, Hope, getting ready to graduate high school. And for people in our world, and by the way, I have to just start with broad perspective. I mean, special needs, the IDD community, which means intellectually and developmentally disabled, autism. There's all these banner titles, but special needs is still a term that people resonate with. But I mean, from left to right, you can go from very, 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 very almost unnoticeably mild to extremely severe, and everybody, who looks or observes can tell. The spectrum is so wide. Um, and One of the challenges we've lived in, and it's crazy to me when I stop and think about it globally, um, that there hasn't been, and when I say this, I'm not talking that there hasn't been individuals who have pioneered amazing things, but collectively our society has not gotten behind this people group in a way
Mm.
to move the needle forward. And I believe with all my heart, this is an unintentional piece, and
Yeah.
I can even share why I think that um, uh, it hasn't presented itself as a problem because I think that we aren't really sure what their potential is. And I
Mm.
don't think anybody means to do that, but it's like you have special needs children, and then the moment they graduate high school without meaning to, we almost think that the rest of their life should be treated like a senior adult.
Mm.
And for the category that my daughter lives in, and I'll just say this, I realize I cannot speak to every stop on the spectrum, but in this mild to moderate um, category, her diagnosis is cerebral palsy. But wipe a diagnosis away, like what's the ability category and what's that potential area? The truth is, we all live in some form of while we reach more potential, let's be honest, there are limits to some
Sure.
of abilities. Like you're going to throw me into a room playing pickleball with you, my potential is very, very limited, and you are going to, put me in the ground. But like my point is, there's just different levels. When Hope started to get to this point of graduating, we started walking towards what I call the cliff. That cliff was, what are we going to do?
Mm.
Like we really saw that future, and everybody knows it's coming in our space. And what I tell people is I got close to the cliff enough for the first time. We knew this was coming since she was
Right.
born, but I felt the wind from the cliff and I was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? I don't even know. And this was a time when I was in between figuring out my occupation. And I just struck a deal with God. And I said, I will give 1 year to this, not as a job or occupation or to get paid for it, but I'm going to figure out what's out there. And if I find something that we are good with, then that was the journey. If I don't, we're going to start something. And I found a lot of opportunities out there that I didn't know existed,
Right.
but it didn't excuse not starting something because the need is way too great. There's about
Yeah.
150,000 students like Hope in her ability category alone that will graduate high school every year. Where are
Wow.
they going? And here's what you're going to start noticing if you listen to this, watch this. Um, in the last year and the upcoming couple years, I can't remember the trajectory and specifics, but there's about 300 college programs being started in the United States alone for this people group. It's called a
Mm.
post-secondary environment for individuals with intellectual disabilities. And Hope went to a school that's specifically designed only for individuals on the spectrum called Shepherd's College. It was an amazing 3 years. She's now in an integrated program, which is what most of these programs are. Um, Clemson Life has one, Auburn has the Eagles program, Union University, where she is, has the Edge program. It's usually a starter of 10 to 15 students. Sometimes they don't go beyond that. They have to get their own funding. Union has, I think, one of the larger ones with about 40 students on campus. Anyway, I know I'm diving into different areas here, but our passion was what's Hope going to do when we're not around, and how do we get her there? Let's
Yeah.
not wait until Holly and I are at a certain age and we are all codependent upon one another.
Yeah.
So the college programs kind of pulled her out of our home and started giving us eyes for what independent living could look like. And then since that very day, we've been designing in my terms, 15 to 20 year stint of a life where they could gain more independence. So we're going beyond communities, is going into mixed use developments, which are have been blowing up all over the country, and placing residents, this is our vision, in clusters, 15, 20, 25 residents
Right.
in an apartment building, in homes, in townhomes. It doesn't matter. We'll buy, rent, lease, whatever, um, where they can live on their own with appropriate support. And I've got a 5 tier model of what that looks like. I won't go into it, but one of those is what's called a support coach, which is like a lifetime RA or advisor or
Mm.
caseworker. And they help them live independently, get meaningful and gainful employment where they're making money,
Wow.
contribute, and then there's other, subsidiary ways to contribute. We want them to live, work, have accessibility, have meaning, have friendships, and not be put out on. We love the beautiful properties where you can build your own campus, and there's models out there where that's required, and there's models
Yeah.
that are wonderful, and I'm not, but we want an integrated model because here's my passion. The world needs this community around them. And just
Mm.
like I said, we've been raising Hope, she's been raising us. They make us so much better.
Yeah.
These are not individuals to put out on a property and go visit. They're individuals that want to live independently. And I could go into more and more and more details, but we've been in about since really 2020. In February of 2020, I started putting pen to paper and creating words. And the first word I wrote down was beyond. How do we help
Mm.
them go beyond what they think they can do, what we don't even know what they can do, what we think they can do, go beyond just this life of happy living in the basement with mom and dad. And so anyway, I I want to reiterate, I'm talking about a specific ability group within the spectrum
Right.
because for some it's a much more severe
Yeah.
scenario and they need the extra care. For Those of us, we're discovering the lid just keeps getting higher on their potential. Post-secondary world college programs are coming. You're going to notice industries that are starting to hire and raise that. We're trying to create a place where they can live after the post-secondary environment and get a job and live with more independence and reach more potential. That's what Beyond Communities is. That's my mission. I'll
Wow.
stop right there because I could talk for hours on it, but
I
that's
love
that's that's what we're doing, man.
I love it, Pete. I know this summer I saw you post some stuff and talk about lifting the lid. You know,
Mm.
John Maxwell talks about the law of the lid, right? And you know, part of being on mission is continually like being radically curious about
Mm.
ourselves and like where is the lid?
Mm.
Like why settle? Can we lift the lid one notch more?
Yeah.
Then you get up there and like you look around and like, oh,
Mm.
okay, I didn't know this. And literally saw Hopi. She was on some kind of a mission trip or
Yeah.
what, like tell a little bit about
Yeah.
that and how Hopi
Yeah.
now was independently serving and helping, you know, in a
Yeah.
way that maybe we even never even thought about.
Yeah. She went on a mission trip with her school, Union University, to Peru this summer. It was the first time she's been out of the country without us. She raised her own support. Um, and they went with an organization called Johnny and Friends. Johnny Erickson
Mm.
Tata is an individual that was in a diving accident at the age of 19, and you talk about turning that pain into purpose, and she turned her life into a mission. They have an She has a part of their organization called Wheels for the World, and she became disabled, arms, legs, everything, and uh, there are people around the world who literally have zero mobility because they don't have access to wheelchairs. So they
Mm.
go into areas where people have very little resources. And they identify those areas, and then they invite people to come, and basically they they bring in physical therapists and others to help fit these individuals with a physical wheelchair, and they leave there with a wheelchair. That's the physical need, and then they share the gospel with them too. Well, they started inviting individuals from the United States with disabilities. So Hope's mission this summer went to Peru and served there, and every day went into this dusty garage. Poor little thing got sick, but she loved it. And she was a part. So they paired five students from the EDGE program with intellectual disabilities with some therapist students from a college in Texas. And they did this mission trip with those two groups. And I mean, it must have been a hot mess at times. I guarantee
You
it.
know,
But listen, we would talk to Hope on WhatsApp while she was there.
yeah.
And one night she said, "Dad, I met a little boy today that has my same disability. He has cerebral
Wow.
palsy, but he couldn't walk." And she said, "And Dad, he was also blind. And so I didn't know what to do for him. So the only thing I knew to do was sing Jesus Loves Me to him." And she thought that was just the greatest thing in the world. But here's somebody with an intellectual disability, and she'll talk about it all day long. And she's raising money, goes to Peru. Dude, they went to Machu Picchu. They took some extra transportation. The bus got broken down for like 3 hours. They're going through all kinds of mess. We would be sitting here like, get me to my hotel room, whatever. And they're just serving. Now, when she came home, she slept for about 4 days straight. But I mean, we never saw that coming. We never
Yeah.
thought that was possible. This semester at school, she got a job off campus working in a daycare at the church that she goes to. She gets paid. I said,
No.
"Well, how much are you making?" "I don't know." She didn't know what she was getting paid. But listen, she now I don't have to put money in her checking account because she
Right.
gets paid, even if it's a little bit, every week she gets a paycheck. She works a couple days a week.
Wow.
She rushed and got into a sorority, Breck.
No way.
She's did that all on her own.
Did
And
not
anyway,
know
I
that.
could keep talking, but my point is that's the lid that just keeps lifting.
Yes.
we are actually like practically designing Beyond Communities and adjusting it based on her trajectory and what we're seeing, because we want to create the next step after that. We're not trying to be the college program. We're not really trying to be an industry where we own a business and they work at them. That may come add on later, but we want to give them a place to live, appropriate support and coaching, and then help them in those areas. The rest of the world and society are coming along. Anyway, we're trying to create a world within our world for them. And we're just finding what we hoped and wanted to be true actually true. They can do far more than we ever thought they could.
Man, that's amazing. It's killer. I love it, Pete. And thank you for sharing that. Hey, as we close today, I always got a couple of questions. What's a belief about leadership you used to hold, but you no longer like, you know what? I don't quite believe that. Any kind of leadership where you thought like, hey, this is what you're supposed to do, and then out of your own experience, you're like, yeah, I don't know that that's exactly right.
Yeah. What comes to mind, and I think we could easily transpose it into a leadership principle. The foundation of um like I'll just say this, a calling, meaning this is
Mm,
what I'm going to do the rest of my life.
mm,
So I'd have to put some more language to that. But when we're taught that, and I'm sitting here saying, find a mission, right? Like we unintentionally attach that too quickly to a job, an occupation, a place, a
mm.
thing. And I would say in today's time, like, man, when that radar hits and the target, you better go after it and give it all you have. But be careful that you don't wrap your identity
Yeah,
around that thing, that season, that job, that occupation. Um, Wrap it around it while it's there, but it may not always be that.
yeah.
It could be something else.
Mm,
And there's nothing wrong with you when that happens.
yeah.
Transitions happen, change happens, life happens. And I will tell you, had I not gone through what I went through, there would be no Beyond Communities today.
Mm,
So
wow.
just be ready what's around the corner
Yeah,
and stay on mission, man. Your mission is not your job. It is not your title. It is not anyway.
that's
That's
good,
what I would
man.
say.
I love that. Well, that's probably a good way to wrap it up. Pete, thanks for coming on, hanging out with us, and man, where can they find more information about Beyond Communities?
Yeah, beyondcommunities.org, beyond
Okay,
communities, plural.org. Um, yeah.
great.
And
Well, we'll have
petespeaks.org. Also, if you want to get
yeah,
me, you can get me either website, either one.
yeah. Well, we'll have that in the show notes. But man, Pete,
Yeah.
thanks, my brother, for coming on, hanging out, and can't wait to hang out in person here soon. So,
Yeah.
hey, if this podcast, if this conversation was helpful, give us a like, subscribe, and send it to a friend, to a family member, to a leader that could also be helped. So until next time, blessings to you, and we're out.